Happy hump day, everyone. And with that, another condition of release being discussed today. Condition of release, what does that mean? Conditions which need to be met in order for one to access their superannuation. And today I will be discussing another one, which is severe financial hardship. In other words, the member is suffering from severe financial hardship. Now, does that mean you can dip into your super fund in the event you're having issues, say paying your rent, or let's say paying your mortgage? Absolutely not. If you do look at the binding legislation, the definition of severe financial hardship is, namely, a lot more severe than that. And with that, the first question the super trustee will generally ask is, has the member been receiving an income support benefit from the government for a 26-week period? It's been a big day already, so everyone. Have they been receiving that income support benefit for a 26-week period? Now, if the answer is no, you're going to find it very, very difficult to access their money under that provision. And really, superannuation is there for retirement benefits. It is not there as a slush fund for in the event you're needing to dip in because, let's say, you've gone to Chadstone and you've gone on a bit of a shopping spree. That's not going to cut the mustard. If you're having issues paying your credit card, that's not going to cut the mustard. The provision is there to protect someone in the event they are, as I said, going through severe financial hardship, but it does have a fairly emotive definition before you are given access to that. With that example I gave before, has the member been receiving the government payment for a 26-week period? Now, if you do look at the legislation at a practical level, if you are, let's say, finding difficulty paying for food for yourself and indeed your family, that's the kind of thing the superannuation trustee will be looking for before they start to consider whether or not the member has satisfied that criteria. But I do stress the criteria can be interpreted differently, and indeed there is a number of criteria listed in the SIS Act which must be met in order for one to access their super under that provision. Now, the other reason why I've mentioned that one pretty early on, following on from yesterday when we discussed 65 years of age or 60 years of age and retired, preservation age for many was actually 55 years of age if born before June 1960, but for all of us moving forward who aren't yet at 60 years of age, preservation age for us will be 60 years of age. But the reason why I'm jumping on this one today pretty early in the piece is I do find a lot of folk who'll come to me in my work, and understandably they do feel as though or think that the super there is a contingent pool of monies for if they need it. And I do hypothesize that the reason for that is after the 2020 calendar year, where Aussies were given an extraordinarily unusual access to their super. So think second half of the 2020 financial year, moving into Christmas that calendar year, the start of the FY21, Aussies were given the ability to dip into their super, and it was done, in a pretty widespread level. Indeed, too, it was quite an expeditious process with a simple declaration or two being made. Now, that does remain a very, very contentious policy piece. That's not the purpose of this discussion. But as a result of that, shall I say, and no pun intended, liberal access to superannuation, I do find folk understandably thinking the cash is there for if they need it for short-term expenses. No, that simply won't cut the mustard, and with that I refer you back to the definition of severe financial hardship. But nonetheless, the provision does exist. Now, there are a number of other circumstances or conditions of release that, if met, one can gain access to the superannuation a lot earlier than reaching preservation age. But for today, wanting to hopefully help out and let everyone know that if, let's say, one is going through severe financial hardship as defined by the SIS Act, yes, you may be granted access by the trustee.